I feel like
some breaking news from the National Football League after a very busy, very interesting weekend in the NFL. Plus, the Calgary Flames are still awful. The Grey Cup is set, and we get ready for another fight week in the UFC. Should be fun. Happy to be back. Couch Potato Diary Live gets going right now. Welcome, everyone, to Couch Potato Diary. Happy Monday. Thank you all so much for hanging out today. Toxic already going in the Twitch chat. Yes, happy to be back. I know we didn't even get to cry about the Blue Jays together, and that was not intended. I fully had the plan of coming on and doing something the next day or something along those lines, but then ended up not feeling very well and got called into duty at Sportsnet 960 for the week, and so just kind of lost it. But I'm sure at some point, I do plan on talking some Blue Jays at some point here throughout the week, so we will commiserate together, because that was, just devastating. But I said this on the radio out here. I bounced back quicker than I thought I would. It didn't take me long to go from devastated, staring blankly at the TV to, you know what, that was really cool, what just happened. So we'll talk about that as the week goes along here. But of course, we are always presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca and get all that great Calgary swag. Also, we are fueled by Swift Energy. Head over to swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PKPrimetime for 25% off. Streaming this in a few different spots today, wherever you are watching. If you could just let me know if there are any issues with the stream as we go along. Looks a little laggy on my end, but sometimes it does, and then there's no problems with anything. So hopefully that is the case here, and things aren't just screwing up royally on the technical side over here. But some big news coming from the NFL today, as we have another coaching change. So we'll talk about that, talk about the week that was in the NFL. The Calgary Flames, still quite bad at hockey, so we'll talk about that. CFL heads into the Grey Cup now, and we got some UFC and WWE to get ready for also. So a lot to talk about on the show, so I may as well start talking about it. Let's get going. Breaking news from the NFL as the New York Giants have let go of head coach Brian Daboll, and I agree with them in one part. Someone should have lost their job for this 2-8 start. I just don't think it should have been the coach. Let's talk about the breaking news from the National Football League. It shouldn't really come as a surprise when a 2-8 football team fires their coach, but this one, I guess it didn't catch me off guard, but that doesn't mean I agree with it. As the news comes down that Brian Daboll has been fired by the New York Giants, and again, I understand coming on and saying, look, they're 2-8. Why are they firing their coach? That's a tough hill to die on. You know, that's a tough one to really plant your flag and go, no. This was a mistake that the coach who has won 9 games since making the playoffs a couple of years ago, that's the coach that should stick around. Yeah, it doesn't really work that way. I fully understand it. That being said, it doesn't mean I agree with it. I think this is a mistake from the New York Giants. It hasn't been good, obviously. But when you look at what Daboll's strengths are, he is an offensive-minded coach through and through. Well, okay, I would suggest he's gotten a lot out of Jackson Dart. Now, a lot of that is Jackson Dart, right? But the biggest key for the Giants right now is the progression of their young quarterback. And I would suggest, not that he has been doing this grandiose thing that's like, okay, well now, this is why Jackson Dart's going, but he has helped, and he has got that kid going in the right direction. So to me, that buys you time. To me, that gets it done. But also, like, Cam Skattebo was everything you could have thought Cam Skattebo would be. When he gets talented players on the offensive side of the football, he gets the most out of those talented football players. So I feel like there are times where you will look and, like the Titans, Callahan's kind of an offensive coach. The offense wasn't doing well, so you fire the coach, right? Same like defensive coach Robert Saleh, defensive coach with the Jets. Defense sucks. Okay, we'll fire the coach. But when you have a coach that's coming in focusing on the offensive side and the players that you want to see progress are progressing on the offensive side, then I feel like you kind of got to keep that guy around, don't you? So I don't understand this even a little bit. To me, this is a roster construction issue through and through. It is not a coaching issue. I don't know what this guy was supposed to do with Russell Wilson throwing to Wan'Dale Robinson at the beginning of the season with Tyrone Tracy in the backfield. Like, I don't know what he's supposed to do with that. And then they lose to the Bears. And there have been some management things that you don't love from him. Schefter put out the tweet that they have blown, I think it's 4 double-digit leads on the road. I would suggest that's a defensive problem, not necessarily on the offensive coach. But I don't think that any of this, he's not blameless, but I don't think you put this at the feet of the coach, unless he is the one who is going out there and like walloping Jackson Dart in the head with a chair, or he is the one saying, no man, power through and run over every tackler you can find so that we can test you for 4 concussions in your first 6 games as a professional. Then if he's doing that, then you fire him. If he went out before the game and put Malik Neighbors in a sharpshooter so that his leg exploded, okay. If he secretly went out and put Cam Skattebo in an ankle lock before his foot went sideways, then fine, yes, fire him. But he was getting the most out of the players that he was brought in to get the most out of, and they all got hurt. I don't see this. I don't see this at all. The thing he was really bad at was picking a defensive coordinator, obviously. But even then, I don't think they've been given a whole lot of weapons on the defensive side to work with. The pass rush being subpar is surprising. That, like with Abdul Carter not really being what you thought he could be in this first year. Anyway, I'm not saying he's a bust by any stretch of the imagination. It just hasn't been as dominant as you would have thought it would have been. But that has been kind of the failing. And it does kind of show at least how my perception of coaches has changed. Because you look 15, 20 years ago, if a coach has a pretty big issue on the defensive side and they're losing games, it's still the coach's fault. But we do kind of have an understanding now of the different roles that these coaches have and everything like that. And maybe that is something that should change, where coaches need to oversee the whole thing of the coaching and not just, well, I'm an offensive coach, so I'm just going to stick to the offensive side of things. We saw this week, Dan Campbell getting some work on the offensive side as well, and then they run for a bajillion yards in a good performance for the Lions. But it is kind of interesting to me how that's kind of evolved, where there's problems with his football team on the defensive side, and I put none of it on him at all. But really, I put none of the issues in New York on the coach at this particular time. I really don't. We'll get to where that blame should go here in a second, but do want to remind you guys that we talk a lot of fantasy football on this show. If you want to get your fantasy football questions in, you can do that throughout the show or in the comments of any of the videos. Going to go really hard on fantasy the next couple of days. Today is more news and notesy type of thing, with obviously all this stuff has a bit of a fantasy lean to it, but if you have any fantasy football questions or thoughts, you can get them in. And let me know what you need in Monday Night Football tonight. Your boy in the Vampire League could get another win, as I'm starting to build a juggernaut here, but we need 9 points from Jordan Love to get that done. So where does the blame fall in New York now? I think it is obvious that it's on Joe Schoen, who I don't think has done a very good job at all. Took over this team after the 2022 season, at which point he gives a bad extension to Daniel Jones that the entire world knew was just an absolute mirage that the coach got the most out of, by the way. Since then, not great. They've won, I guess this year included, at 2-8. That would be 11-33 as the general manager. And look at the draft history. When he starts out, the first pick he makes is Kevon Thibodeau, who goes 5th overall in 2022. Solid. Guy's been great. And you look at a couple of the players drafted after him, there isn't like there's a big dud or anything there. But then 2 picks later, this is where it really is devastating for them, is that they picked Evan Neal, who is a guard that they took 7th overall, and he's been an absolute bust. He has played, I don't think he's played a snap for them this season. And you look in this draft, and it's not like the next bunch of picks were all offensive linemen who are going to the Hall of Fame. It was actually a run on really good wide receivers, and then you get into the Cincinnati talk of, do you want the weapon or do you want an offensive lineman? Well, the Giants came away with neither, and 3 Pro Bowlers were drafted after Neal, that being Tyler Smith, Tyler Linderbaum, and Cam Jurgens. Then in the second round, they selected Wan'Dale Robinson. If you want to go receiver there, fine. But that's 8 picks ahead of Jurgens. And so when you look at some of the receivers that were going in that spot and kind of comparing it, they end up coming out of this with Evan Neal and Wan'Dale Robinson instead of what they could have had, hindsight 2020, but instead of what they could have had with Cam Jurgens and Jameson Williams, I believe, was going high in that draft. But even if you wanted to go receiver in the second round, right after Jurgens, George Pickens gets selected, and Alec Pierce goes. If we were to have a draft right now of the 3 players that we just talked about, Robinson, Pickens, or Pierce, I would suggest Robinson's going 3rd pretty comfortably. So that one didn't go great. 2023, they draft Deonte Banks with the 1st round pick. 32 starts for them in 3 years. That's all right. Trying to shore up things on the defensive side, except according to PFF, who, they rank him 104th out of 106 defensive backs in the National Football League this year. Now, PFF gets things wrong, but usually the margin of error isn't the entirety of the position. So that's a miss there. In the second round, they go offensive line again with John Michael Schmitz. He's 19th out of 34 on PFF for centers. Now, the next 2 drafts, they nail it, right? Neighbors comes in, Tracy comes in, Scadaboo comes in, Abdul Carter, and Jackson Dart. But this is where, again, I feel like the blame is being misplaced, because he's got a bunch of fun new toys that the offensive-minded coach has been able to get the most out of, relatively speaking, due to injury, but he's been able to get the most out of them when they have been playing. The issues that this team has had have been they've absolutely failed to assemble anything that looks like an NFL offensive line, and they have completely failed at building a defense. The only thing that they have been able to do through the draft effectively is bring in offensive weapons that the coach who you just kicked out the door was getting the most out of. So if I'm the Giants and Joe Schoen comes to me and he's saying, all right, got to fire the coach, time to do it. The general manager, or if I'm the owner, I'm looking, oh, well, that's great, because you know what? You can, but I accept your resignation. Oh no, I didn't resign. Oh, that's so weird because I have it typed here. You haven't signed it yet, but I have it typed here that you've resigned. That's so interesting how that just fell onto my lap. Because he'd be gone. There would be no question about it that he would be the one who is walking out the door. Again, Daboll is not blameless in this entire thing by any stretch of the imagination, not even close. But I don't know what he was supposed to do. Like, I think if you got the absolute best case, if you were able to go into Madden and not even just rank everyone up to 99, but just guarantee me health, and guarantee me that I can get each one of these guys to the absolute peak of their abilities. What are they? 4-6 instead? Like, the game yesterday was winnable against the Bears, but the Bears are a better team than them. I like the win against the Eagles. I don't know how you get rid of a coach after that. Like, I don't know where the game is that the coach was the problem for them. Trying to pull up their schedule here really, really quick. Like I said, I know that they have blown some leads. And again, it's not standing up for a coach who went 2-8 is a difficult hill to die on, and not necessarily one that I'm going to die on. But, okay, so they lost to the Bears. Bears are a better football team than them. But it was close. That sucks. Lost to the 49ers. 49ers are better. Lost to the Eagles. Eagles are better. Lost to the Broncos. I mean, maybe don't give up 33 points in the fourth quarter. And at some point, like, some kind of complimentary something has to help you out in that game. But still, lose there. That, like, Broncos are a better team. Beat the Eagles. Lost to the Saints. That's one where you can be, okay, what are we doing here? But they beat the Chargers. Lost to the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. Chiefs are a better football team than them. Lost in a wild shootout to the Dallas Cowboys in just an absolute crazy game where you're hoping your defense comes up with a stop. Cowboys are better. And Commanders. Commanders are a better football team than them. So aside from the Saints, where is the game that Daboll completely failed and cost his football team a game? I don't see it. I see a roster that is not up to the standards of a competitive team in the National Football League, and a guy continuing to get opportunities to build that up. So, yeah, mistake made, I think, with the New York Giants here today. What do you guys think? Am I completely out to lunch? Are you going to take the brave stance of saying, no, the coach who was 2-8 should be fired? Because that, not going to be a tough argument to make. I will suggest that. But where does the blame kind of go for the Giants? And where do you think Daboll ends up next? I have a buddy in some of these chats who's a Titans fan. And I said, so next Titans coach? I wouldn't mind that. I would trust him with Cam Ward and kind of the next progression of this football team. If I'm Daboll, I maybe want to go to a bit more of a solid situation instead of back-to-back fixer-uppers. And now all of a sudden I'm the offensive coordinator at East Lansing Tech. But I would take him on the Raiders. I don't think coaching's been the problem. I think, again, roster construction there, but I think there's a good coach there. And I think that is the type of an offensive mind that I would still want around a young football team trying to build a bit of a foundation to help out a young quarterback. So I think Titans makes a lot of sense. But where do you think he ends up next? And who should the Giants go with for their next coach to try to turn this thing around? If you're enjoying the conversation, why not just share it with some other people? Want to get more people talking in these things. Want to grow all the channels that we're streaming on today. Love talking with everyone who is here. Toxic, always a blast chatting with you. And everyone else, I just want you guys to have more people to talk with while we're doing this. So share the video out with some friends and help grow this channel as we continue to push here in the NFL season. Let's get now to the games that happened in the National Football League. There are 3 teams at the top of the AFC battling for first place and home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And I don't think I'm buying it from any of them, but their path there got a little bit easier thanks to a pretty bad choke job by one of the presumed best teams in the league. Interesting week. I think we learned a lot. Let's break it all down in the NFL. The NFL is never short on storylines, that's for sure. And we had another couple interesting ones develop over the weekend. Let's take a look at some of the big stories from the National Football League. And we'll begin with the Buffalo Bills. That is a concerning loss for them. A season of a couple of them, right? Like the Falcons loss is just a bit of a what? The Patriots are a good team. We'll talk about them in a second. But this one, I don't get it. Maybe a letdown spot after a game against Kansas City in your last matchup, but I don't get how you screw this one up this bad. This is not a team that can afford any of these types of stumbles anymore, I don't think. They are a game and a half now out of first place in the AFC East, and they've already lost one to the New England Patriots. So that feels concerning to me, because like the Bills, they've kind of passed the regular season threshold, right? Like we know they're a good regular season team. They need to get this figured out for the playoffs. But one of the things that would help is playing the entirety of the AFC postseason in front of the Bills Mafia. And again, that road got infinitely more difficult. Now they're only 6-3, and the other teams ahead of them are 8-2. So the sky has not fallen on the Buffalo Bills. But again, you don't, as of right now, own the tiebreaker with the Patriots. Now, a win over them would certainly help in getting into this. But I think back to week one and that wild game with the Baltimore Ravens, and it looked like they were the best team in the league. And they haven't really looked like it since. And it doesn't seem like it's and then they're going to flip the switch getting to playoff time. I don't think that's it with this team. I do wonder if they're maybe just not quite as good as I think, or as we all thought they would be coming into the season. And again, I don't think they're a team that can just sleepwalk through the regular season. I think home field advantage is important for them. And looking at the schedule, it's a gimme. And they've been winning their gimmies, but they lost to Atlanta, who are on the fringes of being a good football team, and they lost to the Patriots, who are a good football team. The only good teams they've beaten are the Ravens, who were pre-injury, and that game was wild, and the Chiefs a week ago, who ended up with some injuries on the offensive line. So while there have been times, if you follow the content on here over the years, there have been times where the whole who have they beat thing kind of rings hollow to me, because I look at this and see there aren't a whole lot of like elite teams in the NFL. So who has anybody beat? But who have they beat? The Ravens on opening night in a crazy game, and an injured Kansas City Chiefs football team last week. So I can see where there would be a bit of panic now for this group. Offensively, Josh Allen is great, and a lot of the secondary stats look really, really good. But they haven't felt like just overwhelmingly dangerous, aside from kicking the tar out of Carolina. It was maybe a little too close against the Carolina, or not the Carolina Panthers, New Orleans Saints a couple of weeks ago. And they've had a couple of those types of games. Now, they've had some crazy ones as well, the Baltimore game. But there have been too many games where it feels like they're a playmaker short right now. And I thought Coleman could develop into that. He had a great touchdown on Sunday against the Dolphins. Kincaid has been really good when called upon as well, but there hasn't been that guy stepping up consistently for them to try to break away from this. And the defense has never felt dominant this season. Baltimore, it felt very surprising that the Ravens had got stopped at all in that game, and that they had problems with the Saints. They had major problems here with the Miami Dolphins, specifically in the run game. They couldn't stop a thing against Miami. And against, again, Kansas City, they were able to limit them to 21 points, but that's still a banged up Kansas City team that you kind of should have done that to anyway. And they had problems with Drake May and the New England Patriots. This has not felt like a championship defense, not once this season. And again, you have Josh Allen, you always have a chance. This is still a good football team. I'm not going to go so far as to say that, but they have not felt like the championship caliber football team that they expect to be and that we expect them to be basically since week one of this season. And now the three surprises at the top are all getting their wins as well. But looking at in the chat, Toxic saying, Bills looked unstoppable to start the season. Man, remember, I'm pretty sure we came on here after week one and said like that was the best game of the year. And we've stopped doing power rankings here, but like they were, I had them penned in at number one because I was like, you win that football game, you just get to be the team all season long. But I don't know where that went. Because yeah, like that game was crazy in week 1. And then they came out and they kind of beat up on the New York Jets in week number 2. And just since then, I don't know if they're just like, okay, we got this now or what it is, but it doesn't look great. And now, like, trade deadline's come and gone. It's not like, I mean, people get bought out and cut and signed and everything all the time, but it's not like you can say, okay, well, let's just go trade for linebacker X or playmaker Y or anything like that. Not that trading for a wide receiver looked all that good last year, see Cooper, Amari, but this is it. This is the team now. There's no reinforcements coming. This is your group, and it didn't look good last week. And again, like I said, the issue is that the 3 teams at the top of the division, top of the conference, sorry, did look good, and we'll get to them in a second. But a reminder that if you are watching this after the fact or in a different spot, we're streaming this on 3 different platforms here today. YouTube, youtube.com/@CouchPotatoDiary, twitch.tv/PrimetimePK, and kick.com/PrimetimePK. So if you're watching this after the fact or listening in podcast form, just note that you can join Toxic and others in the chat when we do these next live stream. I know it's a holiday and a very important one, but we will be doing a live stream tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Mountain Time. That's going to be the next stream here, as still want to get some stuff in even on the holiday. But yeah, the 3 surprise teams still get their wins in the AFC this week. Back on Thursday, Denver, less than inspired performance against the Vegas Raiders, but that one falls under the category of a win's a win. Win's a win. So they get the W there. Colts, it's a tough to read Atlanta Falcons team, but that was a good win. Jonathan Taylor goes nuts as he goes 32 carries, 244 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Good thing I got him in the Vampire League. But he becomes the Colts' all-time leader in touchdowns, and they look electric. I still... That loss to the Steelers is going to be very difficult to get out of my head. That was a pretty sound beatdown from a football team that then kind of got dominated by the Chargers in what was essentially a home game for them, with the terrible towels waving on Sunday night in Los Angeles. But I still think you have to take them seriously a bit. The defense has played better than people expected them to, and like Jonathan Taylor powering that offense, a couple good throws from Daniel Jones again in this game leads them to a victory. So they're not going away. Same with the Patriots. Like, this is that's a real win in the Tom Brady Bowl against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They only have 2 tough games left on their schedule. I know a lot of people were talking about the strength of schedule for the Patriots coming into the season. I kind of scoffed at it a little bit when I was looking at the win projections and everything like that. I just didn't think they had enough playmakers to get things done. But Drake May has kind of turned into that dude. And like the deep balls are fantastic. And now Travion Henderson having his breakout game, it's quite something for them. And I think this is where, talked about it with the Giants earlier, this is where coaching matters. Because so many coaches, when Ramondre Stevenson has the fumble issues, all right, you're pulled. After 1, you're gone. And I think a lot of people would like that to happen. But Vrabel's like, nope, stick with my guy. It doesn't mean Travion's bad. Doesn't mean he's bad. It's just, this is our guy right now. Then an injury happens, it's okay. You've been practicing now for 9 weeks. Let's go show him what you can do. And he shows that breakaway speed down the left side, where he's so far ahead of everyone that he can look over to the coaches and be like, hey, am I going down, up or down? Up? Yeah, no, just give me a second. Up or down? Staying up? Okay, let's go for a touchdown then. I've never seen that before. That was crazy that he was able to do that. But like, that is coaching to me. It is recognizing that maybe my rookie running back isn't ready for this big opportunity yet. We have a solid veteran in Ramondre Stevenson who's not solid at holding onto the football, which is kind of a big thing, but still, I think that they did a good job of instilling confidence in the vet and then making sure the rookie was ready before he came into this spot. They've now won 7 in a row for the first time since 2021. And like I said, they have 2 good games left on their schedule. Bills, Ravens. Couple tough ones. That Bills game is massive for the division. If they can, they're already, like I said, a game and a half up. That Bills game's in a couple of weeks. So let's say they stay around that. Or we'll say a game up because they'll have a bye at some point here. If they do that, and then get that win, then basically you're 3 games up, right? Because you have the tiebreaker and you'd be 2 ahead. Like, that feels like the season for both of these teams. I still don't necessarily buy it come playoff time, but it's been really good right now. And I think that's kind of the same for all 3 of these teams. I don't really buy the Colts, the Broncos, or the Patriots when it comes down to the playoffs. And I can be a bit of a stickler when it comes to proven teams versus not proven teams before, especially in the NFL. But I still, like, if we played it tomorrow and you just stacked these 3 teams up and it's Colts, Ravens, Broncos against, I guess it would be the Chiefs, and then Bills, Patriots. Like, I'm still taking the Ravens Chiefs side to win all 3. But this has still been a great year for these teams and really shaking things up in the AFC playoff picture. A lot of AFC focus on this one. Let's go over to the NFC, where the West is going to be a fist fight. I was wrong on the Rams and Seahawks coming into this season. I thought the back issues for Matthew Stafford, I just wasn't convinced that he was going to knock out a 17-game season at 37 years old when he had back issues the entirety of training camp. And then for the Seahawks, I didn't think the offensive line was going to be good enough to sustain anything with Sam Darnold. And the back has obviously stayed healthy enough for Matthew Stafford. And Sam Darnold, I still think the offensive line has some issues, but it doesn't matter because they're throwing absolute nukes down the field and just connecting on enough of them to get wins. But the other side of it is both of these defenses are legit and kind of terrifying. And so now that this is game of the week next week, I know Chiefs Broncos is going to be one. Sunday, obviously out here, a lot of focus on the Grey Cup for those of us in Canada. But before that, watching this one, it's going to be like, this is why Red Zone was invented, so we can bounce back and forth between Broncos Chiefs and Rams-Seahawks. But if this was the olden times, then I'm picking Rams-Seahawks to watch. These are 2 of my favorite teams to watch play football right now, and I think you can make a very compelling case that the winner of that game becomes the favorite in the NFC going forward. They are both well-rounded. They can both beat you a few different ways, running the ball, passing the ball short, passing the ball deep on offense, and they are really good with some young defenses as well. Oh, it's going to be fun. Oh, it's going to be so much fun watching those 2 teams play next week. So those are some of the big stories from the NFL. More football talk as the week goes on. And of course, if you are watching here on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I do have playlists for all the different sports. So if you just want the football stuff from us here, there's that. If you just want fantasy football, there's a playlist for that as well. But yeah, just wanted to let you know that we got you covered football-wise here on Couch Potato Diary. And that includes the 3-down edition as well. The Grey Cup is set, and it is a familiar one and a bit of a terrifying one for the team out west as the Saskatchewan Roughriders. The players, none of them are the same. Still some demons that they'll be looking to exercise in Winnipeg on Grey Cup Sunday as they take on a Montreal Alouettes franchise that haunted them in Grey Cups past before. Now, a very fun matchup gets us into the championship game as the team that was the number 1 team in the Canadian Football League all season long, basically, takes on one that probably had a pretty compelling case if they would have stayed healthy. It is the Alouettes and the Rough Riders in the Grey Cup. How did they get here? Let's break down Division Final weekend. All right, if you want more of my thoughts on these games, you can check out my stuff over at 3 Down Nation. I gave my Rider thoughts. I do that after every Saskatchewan Roughriders football game, and so if you want a little bit more in-depth on what I thought from the game featuring Saskatchewan, that you can go check that out right now. Just trying to send that link to everyone here in the chat. Just trying to do that. No, that's not right. Why is that not working? There we go. This is very compelling audio and video that the people get to listen to here while I'm going through this. But just want to say, what a weekend we had in the CFL, and what a playoff we have had. The timing of it is hilarious, right? Because the CFL comes in, being like, adapt or die, need to make all of these changes, need to do this, that, and the other thing, and blibbity blobbity blue. So we're making all of these changes. And then they have an all-time great playoff to kind of send some of these rules off. Now the big changes are coming 2 years from now, obviously. So we get to have one final send-off there in next year's Grey Cup in Calgary. But for now, it's still pretty funny that they're making all these changes, and then you have an all-timer of a Grey Cup. For those watching live, Kick, Twitch, and YouTube, just shared the link to the story there in the chat if you want more of my rider thoughts. But just a couple of them here. Have to start with Saskatchewan. What a drive at the end of the game by Trevor Harris to pick up a victory and send this team to the championship. BC's defense backed off, 3-man route didn't work, all of that. Still had to get the job done. And Trevor Harris, it was, I called it in the 3-down story, it was the quintessential Trevor Harris drive. And they've been really good in kind of the 2-minute offense for Saskatchewan this season of just like picking it up and putting them down, moving the ball up the field, getting some points at the end of halves and at the end of games. And this is where Harris shines. Read, react, attack. And he did that spectacularly. Samuel Emelis, huge that he comes back and has 9 catches in the West Final, including a couple good ones to get that drive going. AJ Ouellette was fantastic on the ground in this game. Huge shout out to the offensive line. Gave him a shout out in the 3-down story. They were great in kind of getting the lanes ready for AJ Ouellette and getting everything good for him to go. And then the big catches at the end. Myers sets it up, and Tommy Neild, very well discussed touchdown, but he gets the touchdown at the end. Just quickly on that front, I was not able to watch the game live. Was doing play-by-play for a couple of really good games for Ambrose basketball this weekend out here in Calgary, but I was able to avoid every spoiler, which was nuts, because I watched the game very early on Sunday morning, and I'm watching it and just like kind of skipping through, and the touchdown happens, and I'm losing my mind. And then there's the review, and they show the one angle where you're right down the goal line. The goal post does get in the way a little bit, which is funny. And then you see it, and Neild looks like he's got possession and rolls into the end zone, and then we lose it for a little bit. But it's like, okay, touchdown. And so I fast-forwarded through the rest of the review, and then they come back, yeah, it's a touchdown. Didn't think another word of it. Didn't consider it again for a second. Yeah, touchdown Tommy Neild. Riders are going to the Grey Cup. And then I saw the story last night about how the BC Lions are basically protesting this game. And how is there not, that was obviously not a touchdown. And then you see some of the pictures and, boy, that's a little closer than I thought it was. It is inconclusive because of how blurry that very far camera angle is. And I mean, like, cameras are really good. Getting a camera to be that focused from that far away, it can be a little tricky. It can be done. Can be a little tricky. But if I were a Lions fan, I can see where you'd be a little bit pissed about that. Absolutely. For Saskatchewan, it goes their way, and off to the Grey Cup they go. And look, like I think one of the big stories, and I talked about it in all of my rider thoughts throughout the year over at 3-down, talked about it when we did CFL stuff here, Saskatchewan was banged up at receiver all season long. And it was never an excuse for this team. And one of the things we discussed is that when Emelis, Schaefer-Baker, Bain, who wasn't active in this playoff game, but when those guys come back, now you have some of these other young receivers who have stepped up in big moments and are now going to be very comfortable down the stretch. And now you have a very difficult team to defend. And you see that here. Neild, who got all these opportunities as the season went on, it all leads to one moment in the West Final with the season on the line where he comes up with the biggest catch of the year for Saskatchewan. And again, like, that doesn't happen. And who, like, Picton probably makes that catch too, but it's just, it is getting these guys into the spots where we're going to have to rely on you. And they had to as the season went on, and everyone was ready for it, including Neild, who came up with a big play. Myers steps up as well. He went from 349 yards last year to over 1,000 this year, and he makes the catch before the catch to help send Saskatchewan into the Grey Cup. But I think, again, when you see the injuries that this team had at receiver and the players who stepped up, Neild's not talking about 23-year-olds here, but Neild has been to a couple of Grey Cups before. I don't know if anyone was saying going into those games, well, it's Tommy Neild and the Argos going into this, but he was at least a part of it, but didn't play, wasn't even in the lineup until week 7, didn't get a target until week 9, and now he's catching the biggest ball of the season for Saskatchewan. Just a huge moment for him, and really shows the process that the Riders go through. The other part of it too, big moment for regular seasons over the last little bit. With in baseball, you have the Blue Jays, who we will again We'll find some time to reminisce about the good times with Toronto. But the Blue Jays, every game mattered because they had a tiebreaker to get through the wild card round with a bye, host the division series, host the American League Championship Series, and then because they had one extra win than the Dodgers, they got to host the World Series and have Game 7 be on their home field. And now it didn't work, but it was very close to working. But obviously that kind of showed like, hey, these regular season games matter. Regular season games matter in football a ton, and it showed up with this one as Saskatchewan, with taking the foot off the gas at the end of the year, but Saskatchewan finished 2 points ahead of the BC Lions for first place in the West Division, which meant they had the right to play in miserable football conditions on Saturday night in Regina on one of the coldest days of this season now. If Saskatchewan doesn't take care of business as the year goes on, and this game is in BC, I don't think the Riders win. The Lions made a lot of mistakes, especially early, that really kept them from building a lot of momentum and kind of pulling ahead of the Riders. There was a drop. The first pass of the game, Berryhill has a first down, hits him in the hands, and it's a drop. Next possession, Butler just trips on the 40-yard line. Butler then has a really bad drop at a different point, and not that drops don't happen indoors, but I firmly believe that they would have made at least a couple of those plays and probably got a bit more momentum if this game was in the friendly confines of BC Place out on the left coast. And then like Sean White, who's missed one kick of less than 49 yards this season, just happened to push one wide right off the frozen upright because he's kicking a literal ice block. So I feel like home field advantage really mattered for Saskatchewan. So a shout out to the regular season, getting some love and getting some run in the Canadian Football League with a big performance in the regular season, helping Saskatchewan to home field advantage, which I do think played a factor. The crowd was obviously incredible out in Regina as well. Let's get to it now. This would probably, even with NFL stuff, this would have led the show if it would have gone a different way. I hated the decisions from Corey Mace late in this game. I said in the 3-down piece, just because it worked didn't mean it was the right decision. You know, if I walk out of here, stub my toe, and go and get a winning lottery ticket, that doesn't mean I have to kick a wall every day. Sometimes things just work out. AJ Druid in the chat, go Owls go. We're going to be bitter rivals for the next week, AJ. But got a good football team. We'll talk about the Owls here in a second. But Corey Mace, for those who didn't watch, late in the game, Saskatchewan down by 7. They drive down to the BC, 6. First down incomplete, second down incomplete, third down, they decide to kick a field goal. There's about 3 minutes left in the game. They kick the field goal to pull it within 4. I hated that. We'll get to all of it in a second. Then they get the good fortune of stopping the BC Lions, get the football back. A pass to Emelis over the middle is a little bit off target. It's 3rd and 10, and they punt. And I was ready to throw my television out the window. Again, it all worked out. But here's why, with the caveat that it worked, here's why I didn't like it. If Saskatchewan was going to win this game in regulation, they were going to need a combination of a field goal, a touchdown, and a stop. You have already done one of the very hard things to do and drive all the way down to scoring range to get the touchdown, the one of the 3 things that you need. You've already put yourself in position to get that touchdown. If you go for it on 3rd down and you don't get it, you still need the stop. Regardless of if you kick a field goal or if you go for the touchdown, you still need to stop them. Only this time, you're stopping them at the 2 instead of the 35 or the 40 or wherever they get the ball. You're starting at the 2. And so if you get that stop, now you're in really good field goal or in real good field position to drive down and do this again. Or you get the touchdown, you get the stop, and now you can win this game. Or worst comes to worst, you at least have the safety net of overtime if you can't get the stop that you need, but they can't go out and get the points that you get. So to me, you just go to tie the game there because you still have the other things. But kicking a field goal in that spot, you still need to get the stop and you still need to get the touchdown. And by the way, they could just win the game if you don't get the one stop part. And just personal belief, I think giving the ball to the best player in the Canadian Football League twice in the last 3 minutes, not what you want to do. Again, it all worked. I'm just explaining why I didn't like it. But that has kind of been Saskatchewan all year. Like they went for it on third down earlier in the game. Schaefer Baker gets the touchdown, and we rejoice. But this has been a relatively conservative football team for a lot of the season, and so they just kind of they stuck with it. And if you want to go players not plays, the defense is the strongest aspect of this football team. So if we're going for a championship, we're going to put it in the hands of our best unit, and that is the defensive side. And they stepped up in a big time way to be able, like Rourke got his. And BC did a really good job of creating that for them. Just to nerd out for a second, the way, like Saskatchewan, for 2 weeks, because they played them in the last game of the season, even with a bunch of bench players in, but the way they attack Rourke is what everyone says, but the Riders actually kind of did it, where it is gap discipline pass rushing. I wish I could show videos on this thing, but everyone, instead of Johnson's going to try to do a swim move around the outside and then cut back in, and this one's going to be a stunt up here so we can da-da-da-da-da, it's everyone has their lane. And if we don't, try to get to the quarterback, but stay in this lane so we don't give Rourke an opportunity to get outside the pocket and create, to step up the middle, and now he has one-on-one with our linebackers, or our defensive backs have now had to cover for 5, 6, 7 seconds. Stay, this has been used negatively a lot, but stay in your lane and try to keep him as in the pocket as you can. The dude's still amazing in the pocket, but try to not allow him to get to the outside where he can get really dangerous. And I thought Saskatchewan did a pretty good job of that. When it started to break down was actually because of an adjustment BC made. They moved Katoy into the slot, and instead of him then going out as the slot receiver, he would just crash down on the line as an extra blocker, basically like a tight end who just started out really far away. He comes crashing down while Rourke is going to the outside, so you set that block there, and it breaks contain. Even if Saskatchewan's trying to get that contain, it creates another layer of it to the outside, and that allows Rourke to get out there and be as creative as he can be. The problem is now you've taken a very reliable passing target away from this offense. Hatcher's really good. McInnes is really good. But Katoy is that big body guy who you can throw to on 2nd and 8, and he can just carry a defensive back for a first down. And to take him out of that because you are, very smartly, but because you are blocking, it took away a passing option for them and didn't allow BC to have as many weapons when they were trying to put this game away late. So I just thought a very interesting chess match, a hell of a football game, and so much fun to watch on Saturday night, or for me, on Sunday morning. And AJ Druid, only your TV, primetime PK. Yeah, no, I'm not going to go down and throw my neighbors out the window. He also would be very surprised that I'm upset about the football game that finished 12 hours before, if I just walked down, kicked the door in. But yeah, no, I'm sure some other people were enjoying things quite greatly with that. On the Alouettes side, they are now back in the Grey Cup with the young quarterback. Probably. Davis Alexander comes up limping again in this game. He said there's no way you're keeping him out of the Grey Cup. I would tend to believe him. But how much does he have in the tank? Because again, this is a relentless Saskatchewan pass rush with Johnson, with Rose. We'll see about the status of Shane Ray. I thought his absence was kind of felt in that game because he is one of the better pursuit guys they have in pass rush. Not that anyone can chase down Rourke or a healthy Alexander, but you can at least put the fear of God on him. Baldonado is good. He just doesn't do it in that same way. But this is a very good pass rush that would be able to tee off on a one-legged quarterback, regardless of the talent level of that human being. So obviously, this is a gigantic talking point heading into the week. How much does Davis Alexander have in the tank with that leg, and how worse could it get if as the game rolls on? AJ Druid in the Twitch chat, I say he's 95%. I would tend to probably agree. I would probably go more 85%, but now it's just semantics. It's enough that there will be, I think, a noticeable limp on some plays, but I don't think it's going to be enough that he's going to be a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. But that'll be to start the game. How much, when a Saskatchewan pass rush is coming at him, how much does he roam around in the first 3 quarters and try to get away from it? Or is he just kind of more of a pocket passer? And if he is roaming around, how much does that affect the leg going forward? So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what they have there. He was their number one rusher in that East final against Hamilton. I thought Stevie Scott was going to have more of a role to play in that game. I had him, I'm pretty sure I picked him as an over in the best bets. Now, he still hit it because the line was pretty low, but I thought that the running backs would play a bit more of a role. Tice was more in the passing game as it went on, but him running is a very big part of things. So we will see how it goes. If he's fully healthy, and for Saskatchewan, you have to prepare as if he is. And as a fan, I hope he is, because I enjoy watching the dude play, even though it'll be against the team I root for and cover. I would much rather he's good, because we did that in 07 with Saskatchewan beating now Ottawa Redblacks head coach Ryan Dinwiddie in a game that was never competitive. We don't want that. We want a good football game coming up on Sunday. But I think the big story here, and one of the ones that can get overshadowed a bit because of the high octane offense that they can have with Philpott and guys like Stearns and Alexander and all of that, this defense is really good. Bo Levi Mitchell, 269 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Bo, the leader in passing as the season goes on, and for this defense to be able to limit them in this game and get those stops that they needed, 19-16 to get the victory off to the East Final. This defense is so well coached. We hear every week Noel Thorpe, he designs his coverages really, really effectively, and he hides his blitzes very effectively. So I am very curious to see what this chess match is against a good Rider offensive line and against a veteran quarterback who has seen it all. Can you give him something he hasn't seen before and maybe force a turnover or two? I think it's going to be a heck of a matchup. I cannot wait for this football game on Sunday. I think that this is going to be, I think it's going to be a really, really great game. We've had a fantastic playoff so far. I think it's going to be very good with, again, these two defenses, these two offenses, just so much going into this one. I do want to just give one more hat tip to the fallen teams now, as we will focus on Saskatchewan against Montreal as the week goes on. But this has to be devastating for Hamilton. Home field in the East Final. Bo isn't getting any younger. Maybe some of the backup plans that they had behind him aren't as effective as maybe they would have hoped a couple of years ago. This felt like a very good opportunity, but it also kind of felt like an opportunity that they had because of some vulnerabilities in the East, with Alexander being hurt for so much of the season. It allows Hamilton to get home field advantage in the East Final. Toronto, down and out after getting picked apart in free agency and Chad Kelly missing the entire season. Ottawa, not that they would have won the East, but Drew Brown could barely stay healthy, and now they have a really good coach going forward. So if you are Hamilton, this very much had a, that might have been it feel to it for the Ticats. On the Lions side, like you saw Nathan Rourke going around like this is our time and everything like that. He's so good. And it's year one of Buck Pierce. If they can get a little bit more help on the offensive line and a little bit more help on the defensive side, this is a terrifying football team, and one that I think is going to be an absolute force, and I think one that we're probably talking about as the Grey Cup favorites going into next year. But that's next year. This year, it's Saskatchewan against Montreal. We're going to be covering this a lot as the week goes on. Going to look at some legacies and some interesting stories on Tuesday. Wednesday, we're going to look at the X factors going into this Grey Cup in Winnipeg. On Thursday, it will be our the stats that could decide Grey Cup 112, I believe it is. Friday, going to be our official preview, our official breakdown of the game. On Saturday, going to look at some of the fun little props and everything like that. And then Sunday, going to have a full big mega preview and some daily fantasy picks at the end of it as a bit of a bonus for everyone. So CFL coverage throughout the week on the podcast for the live stream. The streams are only going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week, but all of that is going to be happening on those. So make sure you check all of that out. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait for these games coming up here on the weekend. If you can't wait for Couch Potato Diary, you can catch us live on these streams multiple times on the weeks that we actually do them. But if you can wait and you just want to bring Couch Potato Diary with you wherever you go, you can check it out in podcast form on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your pods. Let's move now to the world of the National Hockey League. Oh, sorry, AJ Druid, getting in the way of a little bit there. You didn't miss a whole lot of the breakdown, just talking about the teams that fell out of it. But yes, Trevor Harris, former Alouette quarterback. Also, interesting storyline. Harris has Grey Cup rings. Harris has never been the starter of a Grey Cup champion before. So interested to see how he handles it all this week. I think it's going to be a fun month. Oh, it's going to be such a fun Grey Cup coming up here on Sunday. But let's move to the world of the NHL. Last time we did Couch Potato Diary, we were saying the season is over for the Calgary Flames. It is time to focus on the future, and it is time to get this thing going into a bit of a rebuild direction. And it's gotten worse since then. It has been a disaster start for the Flames. And it is like a cheesy kid's cartoon where the second you say, well, it can't get worse from here, it does. And in spectacular fashion. So what the hell is going on with the Calgary Flames? Let's try to figure it out. In the Twitch chat, Toxic, because we'd said before, a week ago, it felt like the season was over. They were already going to have to play at a 100-point pace to just get back to the record that they had last year that didn't make the playoffs. So it felt very over. And now, Toxic saying that, yeah, it feels over now. Season is definitely over now. I don't disagree. Like, I don't know where the optimism would come from right now. Aside from, like, the only thing that you can sell me on right now is that, well, they can't play worse. Because I don't know if you could. But from a talent standpoint, from a organizational standpoint, from a schedule, anything, whatever you want to look at, I don't think you can say, well, hey, at least the Flames have blah, 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 or at least this player is the doody-doo. None of that is happening right now. And you look at it, it is last year. It was weird. We didn't understand it, but you at least could sell yourself, even though they don't get the draft pick that they wanted, although they did very well in the draft. But you could sell yourself on, this is building a foundation. I did, and I bought it. Building a foundation, establishing that culture, that winning culture, that if we do get the number one center that we need, they are going to be able to just hit the ground running, and we're going to have a team that is going to be able to rocket this into another stratosphere. That feels gone. And it was 82 games to build it, and it feels like 13 have killed it, or wherever they're at right now, games played wise. An entire season basically wasted away in a month. This is, look, I don't think there's any other way to describe it right now. It's pathetic. This has been a pathetic start to the season for the Calgary Flames. Absolutely horrendous, embarrassing, anything you want to put on it. At least last year, they were working hard. But it's lifeless this year. There's no compete. There's no battle. There's some. I do want to say, I've liked Hanzik and that line. And Lomberg has had some of that. And like Kadri and Huberto, they have a bit of it. But for the most part, that whole culture thing that they set a season ago, that's done. It's gone. That culture that you want to talk about and you want to brag about and everything like that, that doesn't play like this in the first part of the season. This, not in your, if they were coming out and getting out talented, okay, they're not as talented as most other teams in the NHL, but they're getting outworked and out talented by Chicago. And Minnesota just kind of played with their food and, okay, well, we got a goal now. That's it. Like, the Flames had 35 shots. The Wild were winning 1-0 with a minute to go in the third period. Did they ever feel like they were in danger right now? No. No, they did not. Not even for 1 second did they feel that. And now, where I get concerned is because of how lifeless and how effortless and just how this team has looked. It's one thing to have young developing players on losing teams. It's another to have young developing players on losing teams that seem like they don't give a shit. And that's where you run into Edmonton needing 8 draft lotteries to finally get it right. Buffalo still not able to get it right despite a ton of high-level talent walking through those doors. That's where you run into the problems. And that's where I get worried about rebuilds when, okay, well, losing becomes okay. The issue is they're not rebuilding and losing still feels like it is okay there right now. Like, just horrendous. And look, I was on Calgary radio this week and I was not this hard on them because, like, you could see, we all talked about it at the beginning of the year. The schedule was hard. They could play perfect hockey for the month of October and win about 3 games. Like, that's how good the schedule was. But now you come out of that, you're not playing great. But get a win in Columbus, maybe get things going in the right direction. Now you have winnable game against Chicago, and if you are who you say you are, winnable game in Minnesota. And so we kind of talked about it, I talked myself into, yeah, maybe you're not making the playoffs, but let's at least get some momentum going here. Let's at least get some good vibes going, see if we can get anything that works right now. And then they come out and do whatever the fuck that was for 120 minutes between Friday and Sunday night, provide no resistance against the Chicago Blackhawks, no resistance against the Minnesota Wild, and now just look like a rudderless, awful hockey team spinning around in circles, just killing time until hopefully a ping pong ball bounces their way. And that feels like a really bad spot to be in for this team. And I think it's all been mismanaged. And we can talk for days about the mismanagement of the Calgary Flames. But this is where that whole murky middle thing, this is where that gets really, really sketchy to me. Because if you have picked a direction and this is happening, you can pivot off of it. But because the entire game plan of the Flames has been, well, let's wait and see. And hopefully either something great happens or something awful happens, and we end up lucking into it either way. But we're just going to drive right down the middle and just hope that we can reach out and grab a winning lottery ticket at some point on down the line. The problem is, now the players don't know what direction they're going. And you can buy in to working your ass off for 82 games and being the lunch pail team, being the team that goes out and just grinds and battles all day, every day. And we're going to win games by outworking teams, because we're going to get to January and these hoity-toity playoff teams, they're not going to want to work this hard, so we're going to win those games. It's one thing to do that for 82 games, but when you have been told the goal is winning, the direction, we want to win hockey games, we believe in this core, that's what we are going to do, then you're supposed to get help for that, right? Like, if that is true, and by the way, I disagree with that direction entirely, but if that is true, that this team isn't going to do the rebuild thing, they believe in this core, whatever, then why have you not signed anyone outside of Anthony Mantha for 2 seasons now? If I'm a player in that locker room, and I'm working hard for the future, I can get that. If I'm a player and I'm working hard to try to win these hockey games, I can get that. But at some point, when you're not helping me with a trade, a move, an anything, a clear path of direction, what the fuck am I working hard for? And that feels like what's happening here, is that this team, for 82 games, just beat the shit out of themselves and just absolutely battled and worked their asses off, and we commended them for it, and they came this close. And the messaging was, no, we're going to try again. Maybe it shouldn't have been, or definitely it shouldn't have been, but we're going to try this again. And then they do nothing to get better in the off season. Then if I'm a player coming in, we got one dude who's definitely not going to be here anymore. We got 2 other guys who might not be here anymore. What am I working hard for? What am I doing all of this? Why am I busting aside from the money, which would be the easy counterpoint to it, but why am I going above and beyond every single night to go out there and grind away to hopefully catch lightning in a bottle for a second year in a row, only catch it quicker so we get into the playoffs this time? I feel like this is where really bad messaging and really bad habits and really bad culture really start to build. And I think a lot of it is because of a poor direction right now from this team. AJ Druid, Murray Edwards said he didn't want to rebuild, which is stupid of him. I agree entirely. Like, this is, again, it's not like you have a wickedly talented team underperforming. I can get the Preds wanting to run it back this year because you had so many talented dudes who had bad years. And you could say, okay, it wasn't the gel, it didn't have the chemistry. Let's full off season. Everyone knows each other now. Let's go into it. And now it hasn't gone great again, and everyone's looking to trade them. But I can at least see that. For this team, I don't see, like, there isn't like there's the one guy who's like, well, when he really hits a hot streak, then fine. Like, Huberdeau's doing it. Condrey is doing everything he can. Like, Wolf isn't Superman anymore. So maybe that's it. Maybe you're hoping that he gets back to being one of the best goalies in the world. But he seems pretty pissed at how things are going right now. So that you cannot convincingly tell me that there is something coming that is going to boost this team into being a playoff contender. And I am not and have never been a trade everything not batten down with this group. Kadri, though, it makes so much sense to make that move because of how desperate so many teams are for a second-line center and how few teams are actually tearing down at this moment. That feels like a spot where you could take advantage of it. Rasmus Andersson, it shouldn't still be happening. That this is something that should have been taken care of. And now I think you are seeing one of the real repercussions of it. The Kadri part to a certain degree, but like you are having this season, Sharon Govich, who you didn't sign to be your fourth line center, playing fourth line center. Connor Zary, playing fourth line center. He shouldn't be your fourth line center. Now, neither of these guys should be your first line center either, but if you didn't have a Kadri there, now that part gets a little bit easier. Now we have one more opening for one of these young kids to get into. I respect Kadri and the value he brings to the Flames organization, but there is so many good reasons why Calgary should try to get as much as they can for him and do that immediately. And the Rasmus Andersson thing, Zane Parekh, now it works out now because he's hurt and they can send him down to the AHL on a conditioning loan. So it's just going to be like Beer Fest where they pop that guy in the eye every 2 weeks he has the black eye to motivate him for the whatever that was. I forget the rest of the plot. But they're just going to just keep, oh, hey, Zane, how you doing? Boom, pat on the back. Oh, ribs out of place, another week on loan. But they're already having trouble putting him into the lineup. Kuznetsov comes in, plays solid, doesn't play the next game. They're already having trouble fitting in the players that they have. If only there was a right spot that could just free up and bring in some good assets as well. So the hesitancy from this team to make the moves they absolutely should have made is now getting in the way of the development of some of their young players now. Like this is a disaster. And if you are believing the reports that are out there, that it is, it's not going to get better because they don't want to, they believe in the core. They don't want to do the rebuild, this, that, and the other thing. Like, I don't get it. I really, really don't get it. It's bad, man. It's really, really bad. Like it is. I know I'm not breaking any news to Flames fans. I don't think any Calgary Flames player or fan is out there being like, no, man, we can still, that's not it. But I just, it is so worse than I thought I could get this quickly into the season. In the chat over on Twitch, we have AJ Druid here. I believe they're waiting for Pospisil to come back. And he is week to week. Yeah, like him coming back, he does provide that spark. He does provide that energy and can kind of help some things out a little bit. And maybe that is what we're talking about with like Kadri. Like trade him away. Okay, well, Pospisil can come in and fill a spot or something like that. But you don't have to rush to trade Kadri. Like you don't send out to the GM WhatsApp group, hey, Kadri available, send me your best options tonight and we'll pick one. You can wait for the best trade to come up. You don't trade him for a second. Like wait for that good move to happen, but be looking for that good move instead of, oh no, we like this core. Whatever, everything is fine. Montreal needs a second line center and a right defenseman. Oh yes. Yeah, that is one that a lot of people have noted. I still personally, I think the Crosby thing would do great, although, Pittsburgh's playing pretty well to start this season, but I don't know how long that's going to keep up. But they do. Toronto does. Winnipeg does. Dallas, maybe. Dallas more the right defenseman part than Nazem Kadri, although they could just try to load it up. Colorado, like the places he's been before, Colorado needs one. A lot of teams right now actually need a second line center, and most always need a right shot defenseman. Even like if you want to be like a young team, like a Utah, having a Kadri there to help guide your young players, perfect. And while they have some talent on the right side, Rasmus Andersson would be their number one right shot defenseman tomorrow if they made that move. And they have pieces to move as well. Vegas is always involved in these conversations. So there's a lot of suitors out there for the Flames. It is just a matter of will they take advantage of this situation. And everything that we have seen, everything that they have said leads us to believe that they won't. And that is incredibly frustrating for Calgary Flames fans. For sure. So, let me know what you think in the chat. Am I wrong? Like, if you are watching this and you are like, Peter, longtime Calgary radio guy, I disagree with you. Please enlighten me. Tell me where the good is with this right now. The top prospect's hurt. The goalie's pissed. The goalie of the future is pissed. And none of the young players, aside from Hanzik and some Coronado flashes, are playing in the way that you would want them to play right now. It is bad with the Flames at this particular time. But if I'm overreacting, let me know in the chat or in the comments here after the fact, because I would love to be wrong, because I got to sit through another 65 of these, and I don't think it's going to get a whole lot better. For more uplifting messages like that, follow me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein on Instagram, X, TikTok Threads, and Blue Sky. Again, trying to be more active on there, gonna put some more clips out and everything like that, so you can stay up to date with everything that is happening with Couch Potato Diary. Dude, toxic. I said that this week going into 960 because we had talked about it on here. Anna asked a question about the Flames. I was like, dude, I have no idea. I am not watching that thing right now at all. So Saturday, the Blue Jays Game 7 World Series, devastating. Sunday, still relatively devastated, but I knew I was supposed to host on 960 from Tuesday to Friday. Sunday, had the boys over from football. Misery loves company. We had a good time, had some laughs, whatever. I end up eating my feelings too much. I don't feel very good on Monday, Tuesday, so I don't go in. And I spent, after the football on Sunday, up to being live on the air at 1 o'clock on Wednesday, I binge watched the season for the Flames. And to go from the passion, the excitement, the drama of one of the best World Series of all time to the lifeless blech that the Calgary Flames have become was probably, aside from going out and like watching rec basketball, was probably as dramatic of a shift as you can get in watching sports. And like trying to cover this and trying to care was so difficult when it's obvious they don't. How can I? Especially after seeing what the passion is and what that can be. Oh, it was hard. Oh, it was so hard. Toxic. I was gonna say you have no idea, but you have every idea. Yes, at least I have the ride. Riders only once a week though. Like I don't get to watch it like Blue Jays, it was every day. The Raptors are fun. I don't know, like I wouldn't describe them as the high effort team or anything, but the Raptors are fun at least. But like, holy goddamn, man, it's bad. It's so bad, and was such a I have my trivia prepped for a month because I was watching the Flames, and I was just like, oh yeah, that's going on. Hey, I wonder about these geography. Okay, hey, look at that bad turnover goal, poor D zone coverage. All right, next thing. Here we go. All right, back to that. Like, it's a tough hang. The Flames are a tough hang right now. Hopefully that part gets better. Like, hopefully you get the kids stepping up. Hopefully you get that energy back or whatever. Even if it's not going to matter season-wise, which I don't think it does, at least give us something to get excited about. But they haven't been able to do that so far here this season. Let's now move into the world of combat sports. You want to get excited about something. UFC 322, really interesting card coming up here this weekend. 2 title fights, both of them with similar stories. So let's get into it and take our first look at honestly one of the most intriguing fight cards of the year presented by the Ultimate Fighting Championship as we get ready for UFC 322. Two championships on the line at UFC 322, and in both of them, the challengers are very familiar to the feeling of gold around their waist as they have relinquished belts to move up for an opportunity, and as the phrase would go, daring to be great in these fights. This is your UFC 322 Fight Night first look. Let's begin with the main event. In the welterweight division, it will be the newly crowned champion, Jack Della Madelena, taking on Islam Makhachev. And for Della Madelena, this is quite the introduction into championship life for him. But so much of the talk was, if this guy wins, then the other guy's gonna, then this is gonna be fight. But if Della Madelena wins, then Makhachev wants his shot. Basically, the number 1 or number 2 pound for pound fighter in the world is calling his shot and moving up to 170 pounds because of who he thinks Della Madelena is, or maybe more specifically of who he thinks Della Madelena isn't. And that provides, I think, quite a bit of bulletin board material for the young fighter who is really trying to make his name. And we had said going into that title fight, like, this is someone who has always felt like they were kind of on the cusp, but never really felt like the championship guy. And then they go out and win the belt. This is a time to establish this. It is kind of Leon Edwards-esque, where it does feel like he's holding the title so someone else can come win it. it's an opportunity to change that. You don't want to be a transitional champion, just a fly in the I was going to say a fly in the night. That's not at all the phrase, but you know what I mean. He wants everyone to just like, okay, let's pump the brakes on this Makhachev guy. I'm legit. It is strange, and we've had a few of these this year, but it is a weird place for the champion to have to come in and legitimize himself against the challenger. But it just so happens that dude that's going to be locked in the cage with you on Saturday night is at worst the number 2 pound for pound fighter in the world right now in Islam Makhachev. He moves up from 155 pounds in, again, a dare to be great move and trying to be a double champion in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And everyone believes that he can do it. He is so tough to deal with when it comes to the wrestling side of it. And just all, like, he is smothering, he is strong, he's technically sound, all of it. He is an absolute machine. He ran through, it would be quite the thing. He ran through 155 pounds. He also has 2 wins over one of the greatest of all time at 145, and now he's looking to win the 170-pound title. It is quite the run, and it's weird because it feels like he hasn't been at this high level for a really, really long time. It has just been a dominant rise, and now he's here. But you get this, like the 2 belts, that's at least the ticket to get in line for greatest of all time talk. And I'm not saying Makhachev is like, move aside, GSP, here comes Islam Makhachev. That's not what I'm saying. But this at least invites you into the conversation if you can get that. So when we're talking about legacies, Della Madelena is just trying to establish himself as a championship level fighter in the UFC. Makhachev is trying to enter the greatest of all time conversations here, and a dominant showing at UFC 117 UFC 322 at 170 pounds, that could get him in that spot. Bit of a different feel going into the women's title fight on Saturday night as Valentina Shevchenko defends her title against the former 2-time strawweight champion Zhang Weili. For Valentina Shevchenko, there is no legacy that needs defining. She is, at the very worst, the 4th best fighter in women's MMA history. You can make a very compelling case all the way up to basically number 2. Amanda Nunes doing her thing. But this is one of the greatest of all time in Valentina Shevchenko. And so she is just adding more to her Hall of Fame GOAT resume if she can knock off another champion from another different weight class coming in and trying to take her crown away. So this is just building the resume for her. But it is a test of how much does she have left. When you get to a certain age, that becomes the question always. And we kind of wondered, how much did she have left after losing to Alexa Grasso? Well, she firmly established in the last fight that she has at least that much left, and she is still really, really good. But Zhang Weili is not anything to mess with. And it's interesting because she is a 2-time champion and generally assumed that she is a very high-level fighter for a really long time. So this isn't like Della Madelena where it's fighting for legitimacy. But when we do talk about like best in the world right now and everything like that, the name doesn't come up a whole lot, specifically because Valentina Shevchenko exists. And so again, kind of like Makhachev, but just a step below, if Zhang Weili wants to enter a different stratosphere, a different tier, a different conversation for where she sits in the pecking order in the UFC, gotta win on Saturday night. So 2 title fights, but major legacy impacting storylines throughout the night. And I can't wait for some fisticuffs on Saturday night inside the Octagon. We're going to have UFC coverage throughout the week, doing it a little bit differently than we've done in the past, although the last couple we've just missed. So still going to do fighters to watch and still going to do the full fight breakdown on Friday, but the fighters to watch going to be a little bit different in the rest of the fight week. Just a bit of a tweak to what you are used to here from Couch Potato Diary as we just try to make things... make it so that it's not so easy for me to just have to miss a week with everything that gets going on. So please keep it locked here for all of your UFC 322 coverage. And make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when we're going live. Here on YouTube, we're going to be live again tomorrow on in Canada Remembrance Day. Obviously, a very important holiday, but we are still going to be going live. It's going to be 9:30 a.m. Mountain Time that we're going to be going live. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you know what the deal is. Did this a couple weeks ago and gonna keep doing it now. Monday Night Raw goes down tonight. Boston, Massachusetts. It is sure to be a major show, as it is the last in the hometown for John Cena. So here are the 3 things I'm going to be looking for from John Cena's last show in Boston. WWE Monday Night Raw tonight. It is John Cena's last in Beantown. So, what can we expect? Here are the 3 things I'm watching for tonight. Obviously, the first is John Cena. What do we get from him? I am sure the promo is going to be emotional as heck. And I am sure that I am expecting some kind of a big moment from this one. I don't think it's just going to be a promo. Someone calls him out and says, ooh, whatever, and he's out. I would anticipate somewhat of a beatdown. I would anticipate somewhat of like someone jumping him. A lot of people are assuming that Survivor Series is Dominic Mysterio against John Cena. If that's the case, Dom comes out and attacks him tonight, leaves him kind of laying or something along those lines. If John Cena were to be involved in War Games, maybe they alter it a little bit because Seth's out. Brock Lesnar comes in, attacks him, drags him over onto the Vision side, and it's Cena and Punk, along with whoever else, against Brock, Paul, Reed, Breaker. Maybe you do it that way, but I am anticipating something mega and major for the John Cena portion of the proceedings this evening. You have the John Cena Last Time Is Now tournament that gets kicked off tonight. I'm just interested to see where this goes. Well, we don't have the surprises here on Monday, but do we get something else on that? Do we get a bit of a, oh my gosh, this is happening with that? And then the last thing I'm watching for from Raw this evening is the women's tag team title match. I think you could make a very compelling case of putting the belts on the Kabuki Warriors, given everything that they have done in the women's tag team division. And the Raw tag team division is just better right now on the women's side than it is on SmackDown. The one thing that gives me a bit of pause is that was a heck of a debut for Lash Legend on Friday, and her and Nia Jax as a team is really interesting to me. And they seem to have a thing with Charlotte and Alexa. So what's their involvement in this whole thing now? I'm very curious as to that. So there's a bit of doubt in my mind, although I do think the Kabuki Warriors become tag team champions tonight. So those are the 3 things that I'm looking for from Monday Night Raw this evening. Did I miss anything? What are you guys looking for from the big show? Let me know in the comments coming up ahead of Monday Night Raw here tonight. So, in the chat, AJ Druid, Dirty Dom, I can see that attack happening. That's kind of where I think, too. Like, it did seem like they were setting up Dom against Ray for Survivor Series, right? And getting that kind of thing. They're, San Diego, Rey Mysterio, 619, that's the area code there. Like, get that, like, really lock that in. But it still kind of feels like Dom is the direction for John Cena, right? So how much does the Seth injury throw things off? Do they want to go Cena against Punk one more time at Survivor Series and then have it be Dom against Ray at there and then do Dom against Cena some other time? Or what is the mixing and matching that they do? Like I said, does Cena team with CM Punk in this War Games thing? I know a lot of people are talking about Dom and then Gunther. Personally, I still want the last win to go to Braun Breaker, but that's just me. But I'm again, because of one injury to Seth, I feel like there's a lot of directions that they can go in. So that's why I'm actually quite interested in what they do for Raw this evening. So yeah, just very, very intrigued at the direction that they go. But certainly, if the rumors are true and it's Dirty Dom against Cena at Survivor Series, I could absolutely see Dom and the full Judgment Day doing an attack on them tonight. An attack on Cena tonight. I could absolutely 100% see that. Like I said, it's going to be really interesting. It's quite the Monday for us. We have Monday Night Raw, Cena in Boston, and we got Eagles against the Packers. That's a hell of a football game closing out the week. The one thing, is that we're going to be talking about it here tomorrow. That's going to do it. Coming up on an hour and a half on the recording. So the podcast going to be broken up into 2 parts. And, but yeah, tomorrow we got fantasy football. We're going to react to Monday Night Football. Going to react to Monday Night Raw. We got fantasy football waiver wire. We're going to have the dumpster darlings. Going to look at some of the Grey Cup stories, and whatever y'all want to talk about. Should be a whole lot of fun. So thank you guys so much for hanging out today. As always, we are presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca for all that great Calgary swag, including the Hanging in the Dome with Jerome, Chillin' with Jerome. That is available right now. All the proceeds going to Kidsport. Get that energy over at swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PKPrimetime for 25% off. Later, Toxic. Again, we're going to be back live on the holiday Tuesday, 9:30 a.m. Mountain Time. Gonna keep it hour 25 to make sure we don't go into 11 o'clock out here, but that is going to be that. And then Wednesday, we're going to be back at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Check that. Sorry. Going to be 11 a.m. Mountain Time. I have doing the hockey show with James Lynch on YouTube. So that's going to be at 10. So 11, I'm going to be live here talking about a bunch of other stuff as we get ready for a very busy weekend. For all the updates, follow me on social media. I'm at Primetime Klein. If you are listening in podcast form after, make sure you leave a review. Hit that subscribe button. Helps me out a ton. Wherever you are watching this, hit that subscribe button on YouTube or just the follow button over on Twitch and Kick. Subscribe as well if you have the means. That would mean the world. But just you guys hanging out is the best. Later, AJ Druid. Later, Toxic. And later, all of you. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.